say, on the one hand, thank you to the donors and to the hosts, but on the other hand, also to especially Veronika Viera and Almut Sedelmeier from the Danube Office, who are organizing this and all the other meetings with a very high dedication to the Danube project. So thank you very much for this. I'm going to share my screen now. And going to start. Yeah, well, the thesis is that we, Danube Guides, can really contribute to sustainable tourism, especially and even in this very difficult situation now. What I'm going to tell you in the next 30 minutes. As announced, I would like to give you a brief outlook, perspectives, scenarios for the post-COVID-19 tourism development in general, but specifically focusing on the Danube area. I then go a bit into history of the Danube Guides project, and then come to the Danube Guides Action now for 2020 till 22. I mean, even already the fact that with this meeting we have some insights in some of your offices, kitchens, living rooms. In some other pictures we see some backgrounds of mountains, the Danube, but also tropical beaches, shows and give a hint that we do run some difficult times. And this is obviously something that we need to discuss, that current times are very difficult. If we look back to May 2020, this was no forecast, but this was different scenarios presented by the World Tourism Organization of how tourism could recover throughout this year. But the end of the scale is December this year, so in two weeks' time. And it was a very optimistic scenario, especially the first one, saying that at the end, by December, maybe beginning of next year, we come to the tourism stage that we had before COVID. I mean, you see also the different other scenarios, but what we know today is that it's not only definitely the weakest scenario, but at the end, it's also a constant up and down. And it's at the moment very, very difficult to really give clear forecasts for the future. But what we see is that there is, of course, also a different impact if we discuss it with the airline business. Airlines at the moment say, well, they're back to business, to the before COVID business, maybe in 23, most probably only in 24. If we discuss it with tour operators, especially the outgoing tour operators from here, they say, well, earliest end of next year, most probably mid-22, that they come back to a kind of business that they used to. If we discuss it with the hotels and accommodations and destinations in our regions, the picture is quite different. Some of the hotels and some of the accommodations suffer very much. Some other destinations doing good, or did good, at least in the summer 2020. We actually don't know how the winter will be. But I discussed it with several destinations in different countries in Central Europe. Several of them told me that they had the best summer result ever. They had more arrivals, more tourists than in any other season in the last years, but only some destinations. And if you look closer to what kind of destinations those are, you immediately realize that it is those destinations that offer a near to nature, nature-based, culture-oriented tourism, something that presents the region in its uniqueness, something that is not occupied with masses of tourism, not occupied with huge hotels, but more focusing on that small scale or mainly middle scale tourism. So there is definitely a very different result and also a very different outlook for the upcoming year. What we see is that there is a change in the travel habit for the tourists, and this will constantly be the case in the next years. There were several researches done in the last month. I just would like to quote one that was done in this summer, asking mainly German tourists about the impacts of COVID-19 on their travel behavior. And the first question is, I would like to do a different form of tourism, a more respectful way of visiting communities and nature. And you see, especially in Western Europe, a huge degree on agreement. Second question was, I wish to avoid mass tourism and large cities. And also you see here, especially in Western Europe, it was a huge agreement. So this was what we discovered also in this summer. People did not go to large cities. People preferred to stay in small accommodations, bed and breakfast, farm stays, small pensions, and trying to avoid the huge hotels. We had several cases where tourists in rural areas told me that, or told colleagues from different destination management organizations, that for them it's the first time to visit such an area. It's the first time to do farm holidays. But they've been amazed of that. And they said, well, this is what they will do also next year. So for this specific type of regions, it was really also a chance to present themselves and to stabilize or even increase their touristic figures. I mean, the outlook for business tourism is completely different, of course. I mean, we see a big loss in the business tourism to all the larger cities that live off congress tourism, to all the congress centers. And this is something that definitely will stay. Several of the companies and even large congress organizers realized already that working like we do now, working with virtual means, saves a lot of money. And if people know each other, it is a perfect way of communication. This will definitely impact business tourism and by that also the airlines on the long run. A very interesting question is the cruise tourism and the impact of COVID-19 to cruises. On the one hand, at the moment, the cruise operators try to present themselves as a kind of guarantee for high standard hygiene measures. So they present the cruises as a kind of safe haven for health. We see if this strategy works out. My personal impression is more that cruises are still seen as a kind of risky or more risky form of tourism when it comes to pandemic and their impacts, especially if we know, as we know that cruise tourists are very often part of the elderly people, partly high-risk groups. So my outlook is rather that this group will stay away from cruises, stay away from the impression that they're again in a kind of packed, dense situation with no possibility to escape if something happens. I mean, this is more for the large sea cruises. The river cruises might be different. First, because nowadays also the river cruises, especially in the Danube, focus a little bit more already also on a younger audience. And the whole way, I mean, the size is not that big, etc. So there is quite a difference between sea cruises and river cruises. But I'm very curious really on the impact on the Danube river cruises. But in general, I do see definitely a chance for the Danube region. Maybe not for the large cities along the Danube, but for everything that's based on culture and nature-related tourism in the Danube Basin. Of course, there's a big chance for biking tourism, for hiking tourism, which is also promoted now in the Danube region, for all the protected areas, for smaller museums and visitor centers, if they're coming up with some good health measures and protection measures. So there is a good chance for all this extensive, not overcrowded, smooth tourism destinations that we do have at the Danube. And it's actually those destinations where the Danube Guides project is also focusing on. So we're working especially with those forms of tourism, with the so-called green and culture tourism, and together with those destinations, we're trying really to enable people in such destinations to find a place in tourism, to create educational skills, and to enable them to use those educational skills to offer some touristic educational products. And this already brings us to the Danube Guides and to the brief history I was promising. It was already mentioned that the base for Danube Guides was an Interreg project for the Danube region, where the Danube Guide was just one of several modules. But maybe the basic question is actually, what is a Danube Guide? Because the word guide leads us maybe to city guides. So is a Danube Guide a new form, a new name for a city guide? No. Or maybe a little bit. Yes, Danube Guides are also able, if they're allowed to, the legal requirements are very different from country to country. If they do, they would be able to do some city guiding. Is a Danube Guide an outdoor guide? No, not in the classic form, but most of the Danube Guide offers are based outdoors. So yes, they are also an outdoor guide. Are the Danube Guides environmental educators? Well, not in the classic format. They are not national park rangers. But yes, they work a lot with environmental education. So a little bit, yes. So at the end, the Danube Guide is something, well, in German, we would call it with this nice German word, Wunderwutzi, or eierlegende Wollmilchsau. Actually, the only English expression I found for that is a Swiss pocket knife. So a Danube Guide is a person who is able to do several of those things. And of course, to be called a guide, I mean, needless to say that they need to fulfill the different national requirements. So we're not replacing existing guides, and we're not replacing the existing traditional guiding training in the different countries, but we're basing on that existing trainings and increasing the knowledge and the skills. So our guides do, of course, also need their national official guiding licenses if they really work as guides. Yes, Danube Guides do have knowledge about birds. And actually, this is a pelican, not a crane. This was an internal joke. But they have more than that. Yes, our Danube Guides do have knowledge about plants and terrestrial animals. But they have more than that. They do not have, and not only have knowledge, they have skills. And this is the important target for us, really to increase the skills to interpretation, to nature and environmental and cultural interpretation to different target groups. And we're not only focusing, as very often done in the environmental education theme, we're not only focusing on school classes. We're really trying to focus on all different age groups, different societal groups, so all different target groups, locals and foreigners, locals and tourists. Danube Guides have skills to explain ecosystems with quite visual methods, and by that also have the skills to create innovative touristic products. But it's not only about nature and the environment. Danube Guides have also a deep understanding of the interrelation between man and nature, and they're able to explain it. For example, the ongoing discussion between renewable energies on the one hand and nature protection on the other hand. They have insights into societal trends and the impacts on the nature, and they're able to turn that into touristic products. And they are able, and this is very important, to do some storytelling. They look into the region, to specific features. I mean, did you know, watching this picture, that you can eat this pike in the Danube Delta without any looking on the bones? Simply because during the preparation, the skin is very carefully removed, the meat is taken off, all bones are removed from the meat, when the meat is mixed with spices and other ingredients, the skin is folded back and then it's fried. Then you can eat it without any carrying of bones. Such stories, and well, this was one of the best fish I've ever eaten, by the way. And last but not least, the Danube Guides do know about the broad history of the Danube region. They can put it also into current context. So this is what I mean, that a Danube Guide is not only a person with a wide knowledge, but a lot of different skills. And we're not only looking into environmental education, it is really about education for sustainable development for different target groups. So the project that we had, already mentioned, the Danube Office Ulm, Neu-Ulm, did do the coordination. And the first step was very classical, train the trainers. So we trained an international group of trainers. And at the end, those trainers trained Danube Guides in 6 different countries along the Danube. And all those guides at the end were able to develop and implement educational product services offers. And to provide a frame for that, the first version of the website was produced. And I'm not going into details here in the curriculum for the trainers, but just to show you that it was a very professional approach. It was, for the trainers, it was also not only content related, the week program, and we have several trainers today amongst us, but it was always partly content based and partly very much looking to the didactic, so how to train the future Danube Guides and how to implement at the end of the project. For the Danube Guides, they had 4 different modules of 2.5 days each. And again here, looking both into the theoretical backgrounds, and here the approach was always very important that they have a broad overview. Maybe someone could mute the mic. I have some background noises here. Thank you very much. Here it was always very necessary to look both on the regional approach, so the respective stretch of the Danube, but also having a good overview about the whole Danube, and practical applications. So especially what we call the art of guiding, the different methods, the innovative approach, how to implement such products and how to do the interpretation of culture and nature was very important. Just to give you a little bit insight, it's about Danube networks. When we discuss methods, it's also about new forms like using augmented reality. When we talk about outdoor methods, it's, for example, also to include and how to include persons with special needs, blind persons, for example. This is a very specific target in environmental education or education for sustainable development. When we talk about product development, it's of course also about how to use the public transport and how to contribute to a regional development. All this we did pack into the project, within the project, into quality guidelines, and we're quite proud of those quality guidelines for the education for sustainable development, nature and landscape interpretation, and sustainability communication in Danube Basin. And our idea of how a product should be developed is that first the person, the Danube Guide or the institution where he or she is working should have a mission statement that is really based on sustainable development and education for sustainable development. And then, of course, by the different target groups and by the content, you define the methods. And every product should be regularly also evaluated. And then we discuss different languages. Danube Guides should have also foreign language skills. We discuss the accessibility, both about the target groups, but also the accessibility by means of public transport. And at the end, we discuss also further qualification, and what we present you today is a part of this further and ongoing qualification for the Danube Guides. Marketing and information. Last but not least, the products always should have a connection with the region. They should include and contribute to local services or local shops or restaurants. They should use public transport, and at the end, Danube Guide offers should always contribute to the regional development of the respective Danube region. So far, the first step, but now to the outlook for the Danube Guides Actions for the current project. we have the base, and now it's really up to us to use that base and continue and deepen and create really a brand. And for that, I have a 3 minutes video, and you might be a little bit surprised of the content, but let us watch the video.
You are a good person. You spend time with your family. You work out at the gym.
Come on, push, push.
You conserve water while showering. You like nice clothes. You give to charity. You recycle. You drive a Prius, but you use your bike when you can. You enjoy the occasional distraction at work, and you always send a card on Mother's Day. Always. But there's a part of you that tells yourself that you're not so good, that you could be doing more, that the world is falling apart at the seams, and all you've been doing is yoga. One day, you see that the rainforest is being destroyed at a staggering rate of 32 million acres a year. That's the equivalent of 1 football field every 78 seconds. You feel bad, angry, guilty. You've been apathetic for too long. You want to do something about it. You must do something about it. Well, this is what you're not going to do.
I quit!
You're not going to quit your job, leave your family, get on the next flight to Nicaragua, take a bus to the edge of the jungle, then hoof it across rivers, lakes, and streams on a quest to the very heart of the rainforest.
Take me to the heart of the rainforest.
You're getting closer. You're almost there. You have arrived.
You're not going to ingratiate yourself with the local tribesmen, go to great lengths to earn their respect and trust.
Nope. No.
It is around now you realize you're living out the cliche gringo fantasy of becoming an honorary native and leading the resistant forces. But screw it. If they could do it, so can you.
I'm gonna save you! This guy comes over here, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna pull a zap thing, that's right through him, right over here.
You're not going to coordinate and occupy the rainforest movement, realize it's hopeless, summon the power of the gods, lead a revolution against the deforesters and their multinational employers in an apocalyptic once-and-for-all battle to save humanity, only to awaken 2 days later in an El Salvadorian hospital with 2 toes missing on your left foot.
Syria, I wanna go home!
Hobble out of Central America, up through Mexico, across the Sierra Madre, where you break down, have your first cigarette in 4 years, accidentally start a wildfire, killing off the endangered species that once served as your occupational distraction, finally make it back home, only to find you've been replaced at work by a guy named TJ, and that things at home are not what they used to be. You're not going to do any of these things, but what you can do is follow the frog. Buying Rainforest Alliance certified products ensures the future of our rainforests, so that you don't have to do the things you shouldn't do anyway. Just follow the frog.
Why did I show you this movie? It's definitely not about the Danube region. There are different reasons for that. You might remember now Follow the Frog. You see also the frog here. You could also follow the Danube frog. But what the movie is about, it's about creating brand awareness and using a brand. And it's about connecting it with a slogan. It's about being creative. Our goal at the end is that Danube Guides stand for, what you see here on the website, experiencing nature and culture along the Danube. But more, we stand for creating sustainable tourism in the Danube Basin. I mean, and following this movie, maybe we need a bit more catchy, provocative, but still showing that we have very clear values and we fight. No, we don't fight for, but we stand for the values, and that we use them into our products. I think we can really learn a lot from the Rainforest Alliance and from their way how to present their brand in that. So we are contributing, we're not saving the world, but we are contributing to a smaller piece of a better world by contributing to more environmental awareness and maybe better sustainable tourism offers. So what are we going to do now in the next 2 years? We have already 39 Danube Guides as a base. And we're using them, of course. As you already heard, the Danube Office Ulm has the coordination, and in this project we have 4 different partners already mentioned: WWF Bulgaria, from Romania the Kumana Nature Park Administration, from Serbia the NGO Vodunav in Bački Monostor, and the Regional Development Association of Gorenska, the Business Support Center in Kranja. And what happens in the next 2 years is a lot of networking, a lot of capacity building, a lot of marketing. It is not foreseen to do an additional trainer-trainer education or additional Danube Guide trainings. We are very open if one of the partners or any other organization jumps on board and contributes with that. But our focus is really going deeper with the existing guides. And if we discuss networking, of course, we have different forms of networking. We have on the one hand the horizontal networking of the different partner organizations. There's of course an intensive exchange between the partner organization in meetings and in, well, definitely in online meetings and hopefully also in some physical meetings. But of course, there's also the contact and the exchange between the different Danube Guide trainers and the different Danube Guides in the project. The big challenge here is that this exchange will remain even after the project, so that we contribute really to a common identity of the trainers, that this project ensures also long-term cooperation. And of course, there's a lot of vertical networking in the countries. Of course, there's a regular exchange between the coordinating partner organization with their Danube Guide trainers and their Danube Guides. But it's more than that. We also involve all the regional tourism organizations in the participating countries into the network. So if you see all this networking, the only missing thing is the diagonal networking, but there's a lot of cooperation, coordination, communication ongoing. For the capacity building, on the one hand, we have 2 to 3 courses, intensification courses in the countries for the existing Danube Guides and existing Danube Guide trainers. So the goal here is really to support the ongoing development of the offer. Maybe enable them to come up with new offers, with new methods, with new innovative ideas, something that was neglected so far. So those intensification courses will be very practical. We'll test new methods. There's also kind of experience exchange between the different guides and trainers. The content is always oriented on the needs of the trainers and the guides. It could be, for example, some specific advice also by experts in the product development, the product placement, or in the brand development. It could be more practical training content that focuses on arts of guiding, on new methods, on virtual methods for education for sustainable development, for example. Due to Corona, it could also be an intensification course focusing on hygiene and distance rules and how to apply all the hygienic measures and health measures into the products. So again, this will be developed along the specific needs of the guides and trainers in the respective countries. And then there are webinars planned, and those webinars include all the partners from all countries, all the guides, and all the trainers from all countries. And again, this will be oriented along the specific needs. This could be development of winter offers, for example, because at the moment we know that most of the educational offers along the Danube are focusing on the nice weather season, which is usually the summer. This could be a place, these webinars could be a place for exchange of good practices, especially. Again, the very content and the clear number is still under development. And by the technical means that we have, this is a really easy task to organize, also in a very flexible way. And for the marketing, we're going into different measures. Of course, everything we do, also the trainings are about the brand development. We do have the website, but this new project now tries really to use the website to update and upgrade the website regularly, to use it really as a portal where all the different offers in the different countries of our partner organizations could be found. We're trying to link also the website and the content with other websites, for example, the Danube travel portal of the Danube Competence Center. Sebastian already mentioned the International Danube Festival 2022 in Ulm. This will be a place of exchange, this will be a place of partner meetings, so it will be a place of networking, but of course it will be also a big place of presenting what we reached so far to the outside world, including all the media work that is done in the frame of the Danube Festival. And we are open for possible cooperations. There were already some thoughts about the cooperation, for example, with the Lake Constance Nature School. They had another project sponsored by the Baden-Württemberg Foundation that was based in Romania. We have colleagues from WWF Danube Carpathian program today with us. We're discussing a cooperation with their Danube Muradrava project. So this Danube Guides Action project is of course open for all different forms of cooperations that are possible if they're in line with our quality criteria, if they can contribute also for the ongoing brand development of the Danube Guides. So to summarize the goals for the Danube Guides Action, of course, it's on the one hand, we really want to deepen, very much deepen the existing network. We want to use what was done so far and go deeper and more intense. To widen the network if possible, we know that in the Danube Guides, there are still some gaps if we look to the Danube map. So we have no Danube Guides in Austria, in Hungary, Moldova, so countries are missing. Also in the existing countries, we could maybe widen the network if there is possibility. And this is really a goal, to sustain the brand. It is important that after that project, a long-lasting cooperation is established, that the brand has a value in public, and that the project itself is ending, but the Danube Guides will continue to work. And overall, of course, what we do, what the network does, what all the Danube Guides do, is a contribution to basically environmental protection and to sustainable regional development in the Danube Basin. And at the end, it's along several lines also a contribution to the implementation of the European strategy for the Danube region. Of course, in the area of tourism, it is a contribution to the development of sustainable forms of tourism. They mention literally green tourism products. They mention sustainable mobility solutions. So we can contribute to that. We can contribute to the preservation of cultural heritage, natural values, but also other priority areas like the priority area 9, investment in people and qualifications, or 7, development of a knowledge society, also 10. All those priority areas of the EU SDR are tackled and reached by our project. So it's a very complex project, it's a very long-lasting project, but I do think it's a very valuable and hopefully also a very creative and innovative project. So thank you very much for that moment, for your attention.